What's up, everybody? Next episode of Talking the Walk. Look at this COVID haircut here. Need to get this dealt with at some point. I want to tell you a story. I was in Bible college, and I had a course on Christian theology, which is cool. And you get all these different, the incarnation or salvation or stuff about the Bible, and you spend a whole semester like thinking about what do we believe about being Christians and who is God and this kind of stuff. Anyway, when it came time to write the exam, like there's some essays or like short answer questions and you're writing things. But anyway, what I found myself doing was like writing down all these amazing things about God, which is what the professor was looking for about like so-and-so said this, or in church history this happened, or a theology of this topic or this topic. But then at the end, I felt like I just wanted to write out prayers to God. Like I became so grateful for how beautiful the truth of the gospel is, how amazing God is. It's not like I just wanted to spit out the answers and get a check mark and finish. It's like, wow, I actually believe this stuff. This stuff matters to me, the things that we're talking about. I felt like I wanted to worship God. It was just so amazing. So one of the things I want to start with is like, you believe that God's forgiven you from your sins? Like, do you believe that you'll be with him forever in eternity? And for that reason, death doesn't have the last word? Like, do you believe that prayer changes things? Like, I know theoretically we could write that stuff down and we could have a talk about it and multiple choice, all this. No, but does it like really get into your heart? Does it really affect the way you live? Does it change everything for you? Do you believe it, or just say? So let's look together at John chapter 11. This is a really cool story, amazing story. Many of you will know about the death of Lazarus. And Jesus was supposed to be there, but then he got delayed. So then it turned out Lazarus died, and people are upset. And they say, well, if Jesus could come back early, maybe he could have kept him from dying. And there's a lot of sort of commotion, and Lazarus has these two sisters, one named Martha, one named Mary. Today we're going to focus on Martha. There's a lot of like sort of side conversations and things going on. So that would be really cool if you wanted to look at the whole thing and think more wide. But for now, let's just look at a little bit of Jesus' conversation with Martha. Keep in mind, we want to see how Jesus is having a conversation with somebody, and then ask and pray, is God having that kind of conversation with us? So here we go. John chapter 11, I'm going to start at verse 17. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Martha stayed at home. Lord, Martha said, if you had been here, my brother would not have died, but I know that even now God will give you whatever you asked. Jesus said to her, this is the conversation he's having, your brother will rise again. And Martha answered, I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. So it's kind of like saying, hey, we believe this too. When believers die, they go to be with Jesus in heaven. So she's thinking, well, when Jesus is saying he's going to rise again, she's like, yeah, like everybody rises and faces judgment. That's when we'll see my brother again. And that's obviously not the conclusion of this story, but she's thinking about it in those terms, right? And then verse 25, all of a sudden, Jesus just says, I am the resurrection and life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replies, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. I'm going to scene skip a little further on, picking it up at verse 38. We're going to see Mary. We're going to hear some conversations from the crowd. And now Jesus is going to get towards the tomb where Lazarus' body has been, not just right away, but for 4 days now. So there's some concern. There's sort of like a public grieving that's taking place. There's more conversations Jesus has. But let's hone in on verse 38. And one of the things we'll pay attention to is that Jesus himself is a bit emotional. Like he weeps and is sad that Lazarus has died, which is amazing because he already knows he's going to raise Lazarus up. And yet the emotion is impacting him in a really powerful way. I think that's neat. Anyway, verse 38, Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. And in some ways, this is reminding us of what will happen a few chapters later when the stone is taken away after Jesus' own burial. Here's Martha again. But Lord, Martha, the sister of the dead man, said, by this time there's a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. So she's saying, don't trouble yourself. The body is in decomposition. You shouldn't trouble yourself. People who've been dead for 4 days always stay dead. And then Jesus said, didn't I tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me. Cool that Jesus is praying out loud in a meaningful way with God the Father, but out loud so other people can hear. He says, this is for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. One of the biggest wow things that Jesus ever did, that we know about at least. Just amazing. There's a trillion things we could say, but I want to keep it short. A couple of things, 5 things in fact, to bring your attention to. The first one, this helps us understand who is Jesus. Who is he to us and who is he in the gospel accounts? It said when he's praying, saying, I'm praying on behalf of everybody standing here so they can see who I am and what I'm about. Not just who he is in terms of being the Son of God, but also, number 2, what he's capable of. Like, I don't know, if somebody could pull a $5 bill out of their pocket, or somebody could, do a backflip off the ground. Like, these would be cool things that somebody could do, but within the realm of what a human person could do. But bringing somebody back from the dead is at a really, really elevated level of amazing stuff. Keep in mind, this wasn't some quiet miracle that like 2 or 3 people saw only, but these people have been there grieving and mourning for 4 days. It's amazing that just like that, with one sentence, Jesus brings them out of the grave. The third thing is kind of the spiritual versus the practical. The spiritual versus the practical. And Martha had all the right answers. She did the right Bible study, but she had no idea what Jesus was talking about and what he was going to do. Some of us live like we have all the right answers. We show up at church, we sing the songs, we have some memory verses, but it doesn't affect our lives at all, like any decision we make today or tomorrow. There's a sense in which actually knowing who Jesus is, what he's capable of, affects every decision all the time, every day. That the spiritual actually informs and shapes the practical all the time, and we should live like that. Number 4 is God's purpose in tragedy. Now, Jesus was really sad that Lazarus had died. Obviously, other people are really sad. But Jesus has the last word in this episode. So when your life is really, really sad, or terrible things happen, it could be that God has an enduring purpose that doesn't remove the sadness, like Jesus himself cried in this situation. But God often has an incredible purpose through the darkest and most lonely, heartbreaking, painful stuff that we go through. And 5th and finally, the reality of death, but the sure hope of resurrection. So people have to deal with the fact that our life here is short, whether they're religious people or not. We only have so long. So death is real, and we face that. Have to understand that that is something we all deal with. But beyond that, the abiding and rock solid hope of resurrection means that though death is real and something we all have to deal with, God knows when, the resurrection just explodes all of that to the point that we can say, death, where is your sting? The funny thing is, Lazarus would have eventually died again. So he was kind of resuscitated by Jesus, but eventually he would have died, like all people die. Jesus was the first one permanently raised and resurrected. And that's what the Christian hope is, that we'll all be like Jesus in perfected, glorified, never decomposing, permanent, forever bodies, and we'll be with God for all time. That is as good news gets, guys. I hope you enjoy it. Tell somebody about it. Maybe talk to your mom or dad. That's all I got for you this week. Appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.